In this update, we're tracking two storm systems, one to the south that'll bring a moderate to heavy rainfall, and then to the north, a light to moderate snowfall, and then a stronger system back behind it that promises to bring rounds of severe storms and then heavier snowfall to the north going into next week. So let's break down the details for you in this update. Take a look at the water vapor imagery this morning. We were dealing with this pesky little upper level low that's really been kind of hanging out into the Four Corners region for all of a week or so. And that was actually the culprit that brought all the heavier snows into Colorado last week. But now that is finally on the move. And as it does, it's actually slowed down from yesterday. That's actually increased the instability a little bit, but it's also increased the rain amounts for those areas into Texas as well as into the southeast. And that will swing up into the East Coast. While this morning we are dealing with some snow showers across the north through the Ohio Valley, but we even have a stronger system that's going to be back behind it that promises to bring a swath of light to moderate snow. And then there's that upper level low that's sitting and spinning off the west coast. That will be the culprit to bringing that severe storms going the next week, and then a round of heavier snowfall for those areas to the north. So I appreciate all my followers out there. If you are new to the channel and like detailed weather breakdowns on North America, hit the subscribe button and you're in. You get all my daily content on this channel, and I would love to reach 250,000 subscribers by the end of the April, and you can help me get there by subscribing to the channel and following all my daily breakdowns. So let's take a look at the setup heading into tomorrow. And there's some colder air, folks. I mean, this is the first official full day of spring. It actually started last night. But man, it's not going to feel like spring to the north as winter tries to hang on as we head into tomorrow. Yeah, that's a swath of colder air that's going to be diving down there in from Canada. And that is going to be the culprit of actually bringing more snow to those areas across the Dakotas, into Minnesota, through Wisconsin, as well as those areas into Michigan. And then further to the south, there's that instability down there in Texas. Right now, the Storm Prediction Center does in fact have a kind of a marginal risk for some hail producer storms. We know we got some colder air aloft, so these things kind of get out of hand. They could be picking up some, a lot of pocket change hail, but some quarters mixed into that bag. We've got a little bit more moisture to contend with further south for those areas into Houston, down into Corpus Christi, into Victoria. I wouldn't actually be surprised if this actually gets upgraded to a slight risk as we get deeper into the day today. But further to the north, there we are. We're going to be dealing with a swath of snow, especially as it gets its act together tomorrow. And these are areas that have a moderate to heavy risk for at least 4 inches of snowfall or greater. So it starts out into the Calgary region, and they already have some winter weather advisories in portions of Montana, but that swings down through Bismarck, down through Minneapolis there, down in through portions of Milwaukee. Those areas could pick up possibly 2, 4, even some isolated areas of 6 inches of snowfall as we head into Thursday time frame. But then as we go into Friday, that will continue to swing off and dive off to the east, and in its wake we'll be leaving another swath of snow. Again, these are areas that could potentially pick up 4 inches of snowfall or greater in these areas into Toronto. So it originates coming out of Green Bay, those areas into Mount Pleasant, into Traverse City, down towards Toronto. You actually have a higher risk of seeing more than 4 inches of snowfall, likely 6 to 8 inches in your area. But that will continue to swing on. Those northern areas of Syracuse and further north will definitely pick up some healthy totals. But that is nothing compared to what could unfold as we head into next week with even a stronger system. But as we continue to the day on Saturday, and as it heads up into the East Coast, it's got a little bit more moisture to contend with. So yes, those areas in the ski country are going to be loving it, as that snow is going to be coming down in buckets up there, with potentially of 8 to 12 inch swath through upstate New York, down there into Vermont, as well as into New Hampshire, and especially into Maine there. Yeah, we could be picking up some pretty healthy totals, a good 8 to 12 inches in those areas highlighted in the pink. And that's just over that 24-hour time frame heading into Friday night, going into Saturday. Those 24 hours there, you could picking up some pretty healthy totals. And overall, here's the overall winter storm impacts for the northern side of this storm. There's that swath that comes out of Calgary through Montana, as well as into the Dakotas, as well as into Minnesota, through Wisconsin, back into Michigan. And then, yes, as we get up into New England, especially those areas into Maine, those could look at a little bit more moderate impacts with that heavier snowfall likely to unfold across that region. But that's the cold side of the storm. Now we have the warm sector of the storm. And then going into tonight, I think it all kind of gets going tonight. So we'll have that northern tier into the Texas Panhandle. We could see some showers and thunderstorms. Some of those could be producing some pocket change hail, some quarter size hail. That's why they have that moderate risk in place. But further to the south, we do have a little bit more moisture to contend with. Those could have a little bit more instability and could have some little stronger cells associated with them. Even some situations where we could have a mesoscale convective system form into the overnight hours that could start to bow out across these regions. Those could have some higher wind gusts associated with them. So don't be surprised. This does in fact get upgraded to a slight risk, because we are looking at pockets of areas that could see some 60, possibly 65-mile-per-hour winds into the overnight hours as these mini squall lines look to take shape heading into southeast Texas and going into across the Houston Metroplex as we get into like those wee hours of the morning. And that will continue through tomorrow. So that's in fact, we do have that moderate marginal risk for severe storms, mainly some hail producer storms, definitely some gustier winds could extend into those areas into the Dallas-Fort Worth area, but especially into central Texas through Waco, back to Austin, back through Corpus Christi, and again into the Houston Metroplex as this swings off into southeast Texas. And over those 24 hours, look at the rainfall estimates that it's producing as of right now. And this is up the ante from yesterday because this system has actually slowed down. So these actually doubled what we were seeing this time yesterday because of the slower nature of this system. So yeah, we could be picking up some half, one, maybe even some 1.5 inch totals across North Texas. But further to the south, look at the red starting to show up. That's where the system could likely start to slow down, easily 2 to 3 inches down there in southeast Texas, back into those areas into Louisiana. And that's just over that 24-hour time frame. But as we swing into Friday, that system will be on the move into the southeast, but it's still fairly slow when what we were seeing yesterday. So yes, even for those areas across the southeast, we'll be looking at some higher totals and even some swaths of 1 to 3 inch totals through those areas into Alabama here, back into Georgia, as well as into the Carolinas, getting into Virginia, as we head into Friday. But once we start heading up the East Coast, we've got still some warmer Atlantic waters off the coast, and it's got a little bit more moisture to contend with again. Yes, this is the last thing they need. I know the East Coast has been clocked lately, and really over the last couple of months with all the heavier rainfall, they're just going to get soaked again. Another 1 to 3 inch swath of heavier rain, especially the further you live along the coast, the higher amounts you'll likely be. So those areas into the coastline of Virginia, back into the Carolinas, back into say Delaware, into New Jersey, into the Long Island region there, back into Massachusetts and Connecticut, Rhode Island. Those areas could easily pick up some 1 to 3 inch totals. And then once you get up into Maine, Yes, those areas to the northern tier, it's going to be all snow with that heavier snow swath with that colder air coming in from the northwest. So let's take a look at Sunday, because that's when things start to kind of intensify, because we'll actually have a secondary shot, an even colder shot. So it's not going to feel like spring, folks, especially the further north you live, as these areas experienced a very warm winter. And now winter tries to hang on, right? So we are talking about, if you looked at my La Nina update just 2 days ago, we talked about we're making that transition from El Nino to La Nina. So the pattern is changing a little bit. And with that change, and as El Nino loses its strength, it changes the trajectory of the jet stream. So now those areas that have been parched for snowfall is actually going to be getting some heavier snowfall, especially across the Dakotas into Minnesota and back into Wisconsin. They're going to get clocked next week with this system coming in. It's all culprit of this powerful upper level low. Again, this system that's hanging off the West Coast now will be on the move, and we've got a pretty significant trough ejection that will be diving southbound. And as it picks up that moisture and then slinging into Texas again, those could have even a stronger case for severe storms, could set the stage for a multi-day severe storms to the south, into the southern plains, as well as the southeast, but even more potent system to the north through those areas, especially in Minnesota. I think definitely some heavier snowfall is going to be on the table by Monday. But further to the south, this is where we got to look at. This is Sunday. This is the latest update from the Storm Prediction Center. This would be 5 days out, right? So we're still a long ways out. That system is still offshore off the West Coast, but that will be on the move. So as of right now, there's enough confidence to put a slight risk for some of those storms to turn in severe, heading into the Texas Panhandle, into western Oklahoma, through those areas into Kansas. This is what the learning model has right now. So more than likely, as this gets closer, this will be expanded and intensified to likely swing through, maybe even reaching as far north as Nebraska, through Kansas, back into Oklahoma, into Texas there, with the squall line coming in that would likely have some larger hail associated with it, definitely some damaging winds, and you definitely can't rule out some isolated tornadoes within that feature. But it's going to be a powerful low. I mean, we've got a 989 millibar low pressure start to deepen there. That brings the heavier snows back into Colorado there, into western portions of Kansas, back into western Nebraska, but then literally slingshots it into the Dakotas, and those darker blues to start to show up on the map. Again, a slower system, folks. That brings higher moisture content. Slower system increases the instability, and man, we could have convergent zones really take shape and just pound 2, 3, maybe even 4 inches per hour snowfall rates at times through some of those areas through Minnesota, because man, your deficit is going to be met. I mean, I know I was looking at it yesterday. I think where we stand for average season today should be around 45 inches in Minneapolis. They've only got about 14, folks, right? It hadn't really snowed that much up there, but after about a week or so, we see where we stand, because right now some of these model blends are showing 20 plus inches between now and next week. Could unload over the next 7 days through portions of Minneapolis. But further to the south, we'll have to contend with that squall line. This could be fairly nasty, folks. Could have some larger hail through through Nebraska there, through Kansas, as well as into Oklahoma, through North Texas, heading into Monday time frame, and that will be continue to be on the move, finally reaching the Dixie Alley region as we head into Tuesday the 26th. Those could also be severe, so we're looking at possibly multiple days of severe storms. And then the northern branch, as that low continues to remain strong, that will bring the snows to the northwest side of there and bring those heavier snows down to South Dakota now, through north and especially into central and northern Minnesota. And eventually that will swing into portions of Wisconsin. But by the time we head into Wednesday, that will be mainly probably highlighted, not less of a severe threat by then. As we swing through Georgia, these will likely be more of a squall line by then, maybe some gusty winds associated with them. But definitely some more rains, some heavier rains bringing back to those areas into Tennessee, as well as into Kentucky and back into West Virginia. It'll eventually swing into Pennsylvania. And then when we go into Thursday, there's the colder air. So, all right, this is a pretty good shot of colder air heading into the end of the month of March, as again, winter tries to hang on. And as we go further into Enso neutral, you tend to have a lot of big time swings. So we could be looking at, this could be the beginning stages of some elevated severe storms, you know, especially as we go into April, because it definitely looks to appear pretty busy, as it will still have these cold shots of air will be coming in, mixing with these warm-ups as well. So, and the 500 millibar looks to get a lot more active. But between now and then, we've got a lot of snowfall to contend with for those areas to the north. So we got two swaths, right? We got that one swath that's coming in right now, back into especially Thursday into Friday, heading into Maine on Saturday. Woo! And then we got that second swath that starts on Sunday, but especially into Monday, you get clocked for those areas into the Dakotas. Look at the blend, folks. This is the model blend. This is a conservative blend. So it takes a mix of all the models together and kind of mixes it out and kind of gives you more of a conservative look. And when it's painting a picture of over 2 feet up there in Minnesota, wow, you know we're going to be getting some serious totals coming out of that region. But especially as we go into Wisconsin, definitely some lighter amounts. And yeah, it could swing far south as northern Illinois, northern Indiana, northern Ohio, but definitely lighter amounts. There's going to be a sharp gradient, a sharp cutoff on some heavier snows. I mean, some of these areas could pick up 6 to 8 inches, and 100 miles south of there, nothing, right? That's just that's how it works sometimes. But going into Maine, that's where you could be looking at some heavier totals. But let's talk about the precipitation, because we've got those 2 shots as well. So for the southern tier, we've got some heavier rains, especially east of the I-35 corridor. That's where the higher totals will be. But those areas that are drought stricken, especially into Iowa and going into Minnesota, you're going to be making up or putting a dent in those deficits up there for sure. But further to the south, these are the areas that will have to contend with some heavier rainfall and likely be severe storms heading into, you know, that Sunday, Monday, and then likely Tuesday through the Dixie Alley and through the southeast, heading into that Tuesday timeframe of next week. So guys, I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video, definitely hit the subscribe button, and catch me next update where I protect you before and after the storm.